Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about wildfires in Utah, the 2012 season, one of the worst so far. We're talking about the cost and what can be done to prevent some of those wildfires. Speaking about the cost, Chief Jensen, you just recently fought that Rosecrest fire out in Harriman, and you were telling me for 2 days, how much do you think that cost?
Well, just our air support for the 2 days that we had the air support, it's going to be about $100,000. No, we don't have all of the costs for the fire in yet, but just for the air support, $100,000. So you get to see the gravity of how much this really costs and the burden that it places on the taxpayers. And you know, that one was caused by a car that drove off onto the weeds, the cheatgrass, and it started by just being too hot and being in the wrong place. So it was a car fire.
So many things people can do. And we'll get into that in just a second, too. But you mentioned the cost mainly for aviation. And Sue, you're Director of Fire and Aviation for the Forest Service. When we see these air tankers go over from the small planes to the big planes, are they all Forest Service planes?
They're not. The larger air tankers are contracted by the Forest Service, but they're contract aircraft.
But they're all under your jurisdiction?
Well, the Forest Service has the contract, but several agencies contribute to aviation support, helicopters, single-engine air tankers, and so it's really a mix of aviation resources from a variety of partners that we bring to bear when we have a fire. The aviation is enormously helpful. It really provides an opportunity for the firefighters on the ground to get in and be successful. Unfortunately, those aircraft can't put the fire out all by themselves, and so it's a combined effort of water or fire retardant from the air and those people on the ground taking advantage of that moisture and those changed burning conditions while the water is still there that really make the difference in catching those fires.
When people see that red chemical being dropped from these planes, what does that do? How does that stop a fire?
Well, it makes the fuels on which it lands less available to burn. And so there's a lot of water mixed in with that fire retardant, and so the water and the gel associated with that coats the fuels and keeps individual sparks from igniting the fuel that has the retardant on it. So it changes the burning conditions directly on the things that it touches when it lands.
Mm-hmm. And is it just as effective in BLM lands, too, as it is in Forest Service areas?
You know, you have to use the right tool for the right vegetation, for example. Right now we have what they call a VLAB. It's a very large air tanker. It's a DC-10, and it'll drop 32,000 gallons of retardant. And it will lay a line about 2 miles long in a light fuel like cheatgrass and can make a real difference there. Heavier fuels, you have to put in a more concentrated drop so it'll go through the canopy of the trees and such to make a difference there. And so it's really, it does make a difference in different locations. And we use, the Forest Service air tankers, they use the seats which BLM contracts. So it's a really interagency group, and Tracy in the state uses them at all places in the state. Plus some states have their own seat contracts and have air tanker contracts like California.
Okay. What does it cost to fly one of those great big C-130s or the even larger planes in some areas?
They run about $2 a gallon for the retardant, just a kind of a thumbnail cost there. And then it gets a little crazy because you've got to figure out what it costs to have availability for the aircraft. Then you have to figure how many flight hours the aircraft has, and so it can. The VLAT's running $20,000 an hour, I believe, right now, plus $2 a gallon for 32,000 gallons. Do the math. That's a lot of money.
We've got about 45 seconds left here in this segment, but as you fight fires, what's your #1 priority and what's your #2 priority?
Number one is protection of life.
Life safety.
Yeah.
It's always life safety, and then you go to incident stabilization. You don't want it to spread to others, and then last would be property conservation.
So you protect lives, you keep it from spreading, and then protect homes and buildings.
And then try to put it
And
up.
that's pretty constant throughout BLM Forest Service and UFA and state.
Absolutely, and it's important to point out that protecting the lives is, of course, pointed towards protection of the public, but also our own firefighters, because the most important thing for us every day is our own firefighters come home safely at the end of their shift.
And unfortunately, they don't always. And we'll talk about the types of firefighters we have in just a moment when we come back.
Cedar City, Utah is home of the Tony Award-winning Utah Shakespeare Festival. But did you know that we also offer a different kind of play?
Discover the of scenic southern Utah.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. SITLA manages 3.5 million acres in Utah lands with the express purpose of furthering the education of Utah students while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, we distributed more than $22 million to Utah schools last year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.
There's no need to travel far to find that perfect family adventure. August 11th, there's the big demolition derby that wraps up our county fair. Juab County. It'll change your family forever.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
Engines on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.